But North London derby, Ray Parlour, played in many of them.
Yeah.
And an Arsenal invincible as well. Is this the best derby in the Premier League?
The argument is really hard to say what's the best derby. I mean, Liverpool-Everton's a great derby. You look at, Birmingham-Aston Villa.
Let me put it this way, right? Because I know what you're saying. In each city, those derbies are massive. But with Arsenal and Spurs, these are two clubs that have been in and around Champions League places for a long time now. Okay, these are two clubs. Arsenal have started competing. Spurs were competing for the title 10 years ago, but they got to a Champions League final 6 years ago. So these are Everton are not in that zone. Yeah. So this is why I think Arsenal Spurs is the biggest derby in the Premier League.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, you look at it and say, usually it's the biggest game for the players of the season. It's like Sheffield United, Sheffield Wednesday. It's the biggest game. Yep. They're looking at it. In our era, it probably wasn't the biggest game. It was always Arsenal, Manchester United.
This is true, yeah.
So a derby was more for the fans' point of view than it was the players. We knew it was a big game. Of course it is. Every game's a big game if you're trying to win titles. But the biggest game of the season, and when I got the fixture list out, I would always be on holiday, and I would look at when we play Arsenal, Man United. Home and away. And that was the big game for us, because if we got 4 points out of the two games, we got a chance to win the league. Simple as that. Where it's more bragging rights for supporters that, Tottenham beat Arsenal and whatever. They go to work on a Monday. Oh, we don't, it's a massive game for the fans more than the players. But we all know the importance of the game. And it's got a lot closer now. Before in my era, probably Tottenham wasn't as good as they are now. So it is a little bit more at stake, if you know what I mean. If Tottenham can get a result at the weekend and win, suddenly they're in that top four again and they're chasing down Arsenal. So it is a bigger game now. I must admit, it's a lot bigger game now than it was probably back in the late 90s, probably.
Well, Spurs unbeaten away. Arsenal have injury problems as well going into Sunday's game. Gabriel, who has been colossal this season, he's out, having picked up an injury with Brazil last week, ironically, at the Emirates Stadium. The legendary Arsenal defender Sol Campbell told H&J this week it's a huge blow for the Gunners.
I think Gabriel has really shown his worth, not only just as a leader, but, nicking those goals and being a presence in both boxes. That's what you need, going forward as a top centre-half. If you can kind of defend and then also nick a couple of goals at the other end and make the difference and, move the kind of needle for you when it comes to performances week in, week out, and become like almost he needs to be one of the first on that list on the team sheet. That's what he's become. That he's carved it out of himself. He's with performances and the way he's kind of conducted himself. It's been incredible. He's done a really, really top job, Arteta, with him. But Gabriel has done a really. They're going to miss him for sure, that presence, but. They still have enough.
Yeah, I make Gabriel. I know defenders don't normally get player of the season or whatever, but if the season ended now, I'd make him player of the season, Gabriel. Now, you can talk about, yes, they've got a deeper squad and they've got players who can come in, but when you're missing somebody who's arguably been the player of the season in the Premier League, arguably been your player of the season so far, and as Sol said there on talkSPORT, big in both boxes for Arsenal, it's virtually impossible for them to replace Gabriel, isn't it? It weakens them, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does weaken him. There's no doubt about that, because Saliba's got used to playing alongside him as well. So now he's got a different partner. And every defender's different. And
I think that Gabriel has made Saliba better.
Yeah. I mean, Saliba's not looked back. He nearly left the club, but he got his opportunity in pre-season. He's not looked back either. He's been excellent over the last 2 or 3 seasons. But they've got a good partnership together. They understand, and there's one thing you don't want to be changing every week is your back four, or even back five. You get used to playing with each other back, and you know when people are going to push up and drop off and all that sort of stuff. And you get used to playing with partners. You ask Tony Adams and all the best defenders in the world, they like to play with certain people. And I think Gabriel and Saliba really, helped each other out. I mean, in that sense. But you do miss that presence. You do miss that. You can see when he makes a tackle, he gets in the crowd, he gets the crowd going. So he will be a loss, but. You got to deal with that. If you're going to be champions, you can't always have your best players fit. and you're going to get injuries in certain areas. So that's when you've got to have a big squad. You've got to have good enough players to come in and do a similar sort of job, like I said before. And I think they've got that this season. But it would be interesting to see if they try and take advantage of it, Spurs, at the weekend, because it is going to be a loss. And a player's got to step in there and do a similar sort of job. And Mosquera, I've really liked the look of him pre-season. I watched him pre-season. He got his opportunity against Liverpool early in the game. And he looks at home for a 21-year-old. So it's up to those guys now to step up and say, look, Gabriel, we've not missed him. A little bit like Odegaard being out. We've not really missed him as much as you would have done if you didn't have the players around him to come in and do a similar sort of job.
Yeah, it's true. It'd be interesting to see if it's him or Nketiah comes in at the weekend. Odegaard is back as well. Does he go straight back into the team? Some questions need answering ahead of the North London derby.